What is transgender?
Well, transgender means that when I was born, the doctor examined me and he said to my mother, "You've got a very healthy baby boy." But he was wrong. Even though, to all intents and purposes, society insisted on seeing me as male, as a boy, I always knew from a very young age that I was actually a girl. And so transgender is simply the fact that the gender that you feel inside, whether you're male or female or something else, does not agree with what shows on the outside.
How old were you when you started to realize you were a girl?
Well, when I was about 4 years old, that was the earliest memory I have that I felt like something wasn't quite right. By the time I was 10 years old, I had pretty well figured out that I was really a girl and not a boy.
When you came out as transgender, how did the people closest to you react?
Well, not very well, really, at first. At that time, I was married with 3 children, and my wife knew me as her husband, and my children knew me as their father. And so when I came out to them as transgender, my wife was actually rather upset because she knew from the beginning that it meant that if I needed to transition, that our marriage would be over. And that caused her a lot of stress and a lot of anxiety. And my children at first weren't really sure what it would mean.
How old?
Oh, my children, how old were they? The youngest was, I think, 18 or 19. And the oldest, 25 at the time, so in that range.
When did you start to transition? What were some of the challenges you faced while transitioning?
Very good questions, I must say. I was 55 years old when I started transitioning, and there were a lot of challenges. One of the challenges was the fact that because my ex-wife didn't want to remain married to me, I had to move out of our home. And I was able to find a friend in Kitchener. We were living in Burlington at the time, so I moved to a room in Kitchener that I could rent cheaply. And I lived there for 6 months, and that meant that I had to drive all the way to Burlington from Kitchener and back every day for my job. Another challenge was trying to convince my ex-wife that she could trust that I wasn't going to abandon her and that I was going to help her with all of the changes that were happening. We had to sell our house and divide the property between us. We had to figure out where each of us was going to live. There were a lot of really big challenges, and it happened all fairly quickly. There were also challenges with figuring out how am I going to basically show up one day in my life as a woman when everybody knew me as a man. That took a lot of planning. I worked with my boss at work for several months to plan that, and it went actually quite smoothly, and I think that the reason for that was that we planned it so well. But yeah, there are a lot of really big challenges for that.
advice would you give transgender kids or those who are going through a transition?
Well, I guess the advice I would give them would be don't give up. If things seem to be very difficult and things aren't going well, realize that you can get through the difficulties, and life actually is much, much better when you're your authentic self.
Anything else you would like people to know about being transgender?
I guess the thing I would most like people to know is that we are really no different from anybody else. We are your sons and daughters, your husbands and wives. We are ordinary people. We are not a burden on society, and the medical procedures that we need really are not that expensive. So I just would want people to accept the fact that we exist, and we really are just trying to live the way we should live.